I'm Jami Shapiro, and welcome to Grandma Has ADHD. I'm a certified senior move manager and owner of Silver Linings Transitions, where I help people navigate life's big transitions. But here's the thing, I spent years helping families move through change while completely missing the pattern that was running through my own life. I'm the daughter of two ADHD parents, the mother of three ADHD children, and yep, I have ADHD too. For years, I didn't have the language or understanding for what that meant. But becoming an ADHD coach and specialist, that's been absolutely game changing. Not just for how I work with my clients, but for how I relate to my family and honestly, for how I understand myself. I even wrote a book about it called This Explains So Much. This podcast is for all of us who are discovering ADHD later in life. Each week, I bring you conversations with industry experts and people sharing their own ADHD journeys, real stories, real strategies, and often a little too much information. If you're loving what you're hearing, please share this podcast, leave us a review, and find me at jamishapiro.me. That's JAMISHAPIRO.me. Whether you're over 50 and just getting diagnosed, or you're recognizing patterns you've lived with your whole life, this is your space to navigate ADHD with others who get it. So grab your coffee and get comfortable and let's dive in. Hey, here's a quick heads up before we dive in. You may hear me mention the Sparkler Society in this episode. Talking about it, it's happening right now. And here's the truth. My ADHD brain got so excited about this community that I may have jumped a little bit enthusiastically, a lot enthusiastically, before everything was actually ready. Classic ADHD move, right? We know what that's like. So here's what's actually happening. We've hit pause to make sure the Sparkler Society launches the right way, because this is going to change lives, and I want it to be everything you deserve from day one. We're officially launching in July of 2026, and here's what you can look forward to. Live group sessions every week, including support around decluttering and downsizing, body doubling, and ADHD group coaching. We are also addressing some of the big challenges of ADHD, worrying, overspending, and starting crafts only to lose steam. Membership in the Sparkler Society is going to save you from paying the ADHD tax. We're talking real dollars back in your pocket. And most importantly, we are building a community of women who want to get their shit together. Here's the exciting part. We're starting a wait list right now at jamishapiro.me. That's JAMISHAPIRO.me. And the VIPs who join early will get free access to shape the community before we officially launch in July. You'll help us build this thing together. So if you hear me talking about the Sparkler Society, it's happening tomorrow, just know it's coming in July, and it's going to be worth the wait. Let's get to today's episode. Hi, and welcome to the Grandma Has ADHD Podcast. I am joined again today by my co-founder of the Sparkler Society and one of my very best friends, Lynn Layfield. And I'm going to put it out there right now. This is going to be a very unusual podcast episode. And I want to give you set the story for how this all came about. So last week, Lynn and I started talking about our different anxieties. And I said, pause. We need to record. This is one of those conversations we need to record. Well, fast forward, we put it into high speed because one of my very favorite ADHD influencers is Penn Holderness. And you hear me talk about him when we push the button. He was the keynote speaker at the International ADHD Conference. Well, he and his wife, Kim, wrote a book, ADHD is Awesome, a couple of years ago, one of my favorite books. She wrote it as, the supportive spouse of the ADHD partner. And they just announced all over social media that Kim just got diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 49 after she had already written a book on the subject, which just goes to show that more and more people are understanding that ADHD is a real thing. it is absolutely impacting more than just the hyperactive little boy. And as I've been saying for years now, you're going to hear more and more and more people come to the realization that they have it. And I want to say before Lynn gets started that Kim Holderness said that one of the hesitations that she had of sharing it is that she feels, guilty that she isn't impacted the same way that maybe the little boy who can't sit still or can't concentrate in school is impacted. But I was actually thinking about this when Lynn told me she wanted to do this podcast today. And the thing is, the rejection sensitivity and the emotional dysregulation that we have when we have ADHD can be debilitating. And we struggle to look at we have it together. And so externally, you don't know how much we're suffering inside. And so I want to just acknowledge that first and say to you that Lynn is my fun Bobby friend. Lynn is the friend that's always laughing, the loud mouth, put it out there, Teflon-ish. You think that's who she is. And she said to me, I want to do this, but I'm super nervous about it because it's not the Lynn that I normally put out into the world. And I said, Lynn, that's exactly why we need to put this out. So I have not had this conversation with Lynn, only to say before you listen to this podcast, if you know Lynn, this is going to be a very different side of Lynn. And if you don't know Lynn, I think you're going to probably hear a lot of yourself in her story. So how was that for an introduction, Lynn?
Oh, that's great. Oh my gosh, you kind of made me tear up a little bit. You did because and I felt let me just say this. I wish we could reach out and hug Kim or go drink with her right now. So I am feeling that because she was diagnosed with anxiety or misdiagnosed with anxiety, and then now it turns out she has ADHD. So, that's going to be a lot of my story. But what gets me kind of vulnerable and emotional about it is, you and I have been friends for 20 years and I've never told you my story. My husband and I have been married for 30 years and he's never really wanted to know the details of that story. And I'm very much one of these people that the past, you can't change the past, and the past is what it is. And you keep moving forward and it just kind of makes you stronger in who you are today. But man, kind of thinking about it today for this podcast, I was just getting really emotional because I'm getting emotional about what my parents went through dealing with me. And all the tools that they didn't have. And then here I am at 50. And I think there is a growing number of women like us.
Okay, first of all, I'm going to pause a couple of things.
Yeah.
You need to be closer to the microphone because you're coming in and out.
Oh,
you're
okay.
not 50, you're 56. So I want to put that out there. And I just want to clarify the misdiagnosed of anxiety. And so there's two different anxieties. And one is, and by the way, I just got schooled on it in my podcast interview with Dr. Goodman, which is going to come out next week. Anxiety disorder is different than anxiety. Because I asked him the question, if I had heard that anywhere from 30 to 50% of people with ADHD have anxiety. And yet every single person that I know with ADHD has anxiety. And I asked him that question. He said, no. The difference is, he said, anxiety, yes, most people will have anxiety at different times in their life. They will have, something that is coming up that they will be anxious about. And then that thing will happen and that anxiety will subside. He said the difference between that and anxiety disorder is that anxiety that impacts your life, it is that thing doesn't pass and then go away. I mean, it's causing you to have sleepless nights. It's causing you to feel it in your body. And so a lot of people with ADHD, 30 to 50% also have an anxiety disorder. And what they're discovering is that if you treat the ADHD, a lot of times the anxiety disorder gets better, but not in all cases. But what's happening is sometimes, and again, I'm not a doctor. I want to make sure I'm very clear when I talk about medication, that sometimes they're treating the anxiety and they're not going to what's the cause of the anxiety, which could be the ADHD. So I just want to make, like, I'm not diagnosing. If you have anxiety, you need to seek professional help, but I'm going to strongly encourage you find that professional help who understands ADHD, because so many physicians don't. And even Dr. Goodman, who's been doing this for 40 years, talking about older adults and adults with ADHD as a psychiatrist, well before any of his contemporaries caught up. In fact, he told me in the interview that they thought he was crazy. They said ADHD isn't a thing. You're going to hurt your career. What are you doing? And I said, look at you now. Look at you now. So I just want to make sure that I put that out there before we, get into your story.
No, I think along the way, you're going to have some good, whatever the name it was that I was feeling or whatever, you're going to know the new name of it. So I think it's going to be very helpful to our audience of where I'm starting, because I'm starting 1975. So there's a lot that just wasn't known. And there was a lot that I'm sure my parents, probably didn't know where to go. But I will say that they knew they had a problem with me, because I had a huge amounts of energy. I had huge amounts of interest, which I think, they probably enjoyed that I was interested in so many things, that, I was kind of getting into trouble in the sense that, I was very much a risk taker. I have a fake tooth because I was very much a risk taker, jumping out of trees and doing things like that. But I think what finally put my parents over the edge, and they were like, we've got to find a child psychologist. I think that's really where they started. I haven't looked at my paperwork, but I believe they started with some type of child psychologist, is when I stopped sleeping through the night. I literally was up all night. Now, I don't know if you can picture this, Jami, but you have two children. They're about 5 years apart, both daughters. And one is awake in the middle of the night, roaming through the house, a kindergartner, and she's anxious, meaning that I am worried, I am anxious, I'm not sleeping. A lot of it, if I would go to sleep, I would wake up suddenly, sort of kind of screaming, because my nightmares were so scary. Like, I can still recall some of them now, and they were always about, believe it or not, serial killers, which we'll get to that in a second, but they were about, somebody kind of coming to get me and harm me. So I just willed myself to stay awake all night long. And I didn't do it quietly. I tried to keep everyone in the family awake. So, my parents would start heading off to sleep, and I was a little kindergartner that would walk in and say, I need a glass of water, I want another book, I'm hungry, I'm this, I'm that, to keep the party going. Jami, I'm gonna take it, keep the party going. I wanted to keep the party going all night long, because I was, scared of the night and scared of being alone, and a family just can't continue with that. And so I think my parents' first strategy was, she has all these interests, and my parents were doing pretty well. At the time, we were in Fort Lauderdale, so they were like, let's sign her up for everything she's interested in. So I was in brownies, I was in cheerleading, I was in soccer, I was taking tennis lessons, and I was doing ice skating, and I was doing dancing, all at the same time.
Wow. Did you see my eyes just go up, Lynn?
What?
That's a lot. And by the way, we didn't get overscheduled back in the day when, we were growing up, the way that we overschedule our kids now. So that's even an overscheduled in today's day. So
yeah. And I think they were thinking, okay, we want to be supportive of all her interests. And keep in mind, now that we know that I'm ADHD, that after they signed me up for cheerleading, I was interested for about 2 weeks.
Uh-huh. Yep.
And then it became my mom dragging me to cheerleading, and I had moved on. I now was interested in playing tennis. Now I was interested in soccer. My dad's coaching soccer. He's like, you're not going to quit the team. You got to do the whole entire, my parents were very big on what you start, you must finish. So even if I did lose interest, I would stay in it until, their fully paid for membership or wherever it was done. And a lot of these things were, obviously very expensive. Ice skating in Florida is not a cheap sport for Lynn to get into, which I got into it because I watched the movie Ice Castles and then became obsessed. And so, I started ice skating, very expensive sport, which I did continue up until like the 7th grade. So I'm in all these sports, and as far as school's concerned, I'm in trouble a lot because I'm fairly disruptive. My grades are not straight A's because I'm losing all my projects. Sometimes I had to do like different projects 2 or 3 times because I couldn't remember where I put things. And my mom would just be like, we're just going to start it over again. So we'd just go on version 3. And doing this all with 0 sleep. I mean, if you look closely at some of my pictures, all of my pictures are me smiling and doing like a funny, I mean, I always have my tongue out. I don't know why. They're terrible pictures of me with my, my horrible bangs. And, but if you look closely, if you took AI and you were like, do you see circles? There were circles underneath my eyes. And I'm pretty sure that my teachers, in teacher conferences with my mom and my dad were like, she's clearly not getting enough sleep. And then you put that with, I was eating tons of sugar because sugar was what would, give me that high so that I could get to my next activity. And then, I'd hit that low. So I was on a pure like sugar diet, no sleep. And so my parents had it. So they took me to my first child psychologist.
Wait, I want to interrupt you because I don't want to lose my questions, and we'll go back to that.
Sure.
Because
yeah.
Okay. So one is, any idea how? Well, first of all, do you think that there was a triggering event that caused you as a 5-year-old to think of a serial killer? I mean, how would you even know what that was?
I don't know. I think that in Fort Lauderdale, I think I might have somehow been present when the news was on. And there was a story about a white van that was like picking up kids. And then at that point, my creative mind just started, well, why does it have to be a white van? I mean, if you have a white van, you could just come into the house when everybody's asleep, right? So I think I just was put on alert there.
Sure, because I grew up also in South Florida when Adam Walsh, which, Code Adam, and I believe that was like 1977, 1978. So we would have been, we would have been first, second grade at that point. And actually that was one of the reasons that we left South Florida, because it impacted me as well. But this is your story.
No. I mean, feel free to chime in because we're of the same age. So, and you were in Fort Lauderdale at the same time, which is also crazy.
Yeah.
And so, you can recall things that maybe I may not have been paying attention to.
Yeah.
Now, I will tell you. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, interestingly, because again, we are, less than 3 weeks apart. I also lived in South Florida, and I remember getting in trouble around the age of 6 because I wouldn't leave my bedroom at night, and I would have to go to the bathroom, and and this is really TMI, but just to share it with you, I would pee into my tea set because I didn't want to pee in bed and I didn't want to leave my bedroom. And then I got in trouble because I would forget that I had peed in the tea set and forget to clean it out. And my evil stepmother was horrible. And the punishment for me was, now I'm going to get emotional, that at 6 years old, I was going to have to wear a diaper that everybody was going to have to see when I would go out in public.
Oh my
Um,
God.
I'm gonna start, yeah, really
Terrible.
humiliation and shame. And so it's interesting that we were around the same age when that was happening. And then when I was around 8 or 9, I saw the movie Death on the Nile by Agatha Christie, and in the movie, spoiler alert, I think it's her fiancé that kills the main character, and so I should not have seen that movie, but I would then lock my door every night. At this point, I'm now living with my mother because I was worried she was gonna come in and kill me in the middle of the night, so we have that in common. But I this is the other question I was gonna ask you, like, how long did you go without sleeping?
I mean, I mean, I can't recall, but I think, what I can remember is because with your memories at kindergarten, it gets fuzzy, but then as you get into, like, 1st and 2nd grade, and we're talking about this goes up to 7th grade, um, I would say my longest time was, like, 3 days.
Wow.
But what gets really interesting is if we were driving in the car from one activity to another, you could see me passing out and they would let me pass out. There was also a strategy of we cannot let her pass out. So, when it starts to get really creative and interesting of how to deal with me at that
Mhm,
age,
mhm.
my parents are creative people, and my mom's a very, very confident woman. So for her to admit that she can't solve me must have been a huge decision for her because, she believes she can solve everything and she believes she does everything really well. She's not here to talk about herself, but I will say, and you've met her, that she's confident, and I thought she was a great mom. So I know she was trying everything, including that she was spending all of her life in a car,
Yeah.
taking me from one activity to another, which was kind of unheard of back then. Most people, the kids played in the neighborhood, but here I am in this car, and we are going from one activity to another, sometimes 3 to 4 activities on a single day. So, some of them starting at 5. Ice skating would start at 5, which made me very happy because that made me feel like my night was shorter alone because we started earlier in the morning. So I just had to make it to, 4 or 5 a.m., get my stuff together and get ready for my next activity.
Wow.
Um, the more that I shortened the night, the better off I felt. The more that I extended the entertainment, tucking me in bed, the shorter my night became. So I was very strategic in that way of
Mhm.
doing that, even at a very young age.
Yeah,
So,
I wanna actually highlight something too that I just thought about with ADHD and anxiety, and to your point, you extended the white van, like, your brain, and that's what happens with ADHD, at least in my lived experience, is we are so creative that we will, like, jump to the next thing, and, for me, you remember, and, I'm really funny about germs and how I eat and blah, 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 but in my whatever brain, alcohol kills germs, so I can share an alcoholic drink. I mean, it's like we make these leaps that are just right?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I all kinds of crazy things, that we're just so creative. I mean, you could make horror movies out of my dreams from my younger self. I mean, you really
wow.
could. If anybody needs horror ideas, I'm pretty sure I've got a few of them that I could recall.
And that's probably why
Yeah.
as I'm interrupting you, my ADHD, that's probably why we are the creatives and the entertainers and the writers and the artists because of that creativity. Okay, before we come back and we're going to pick up from you went to the psychologist and we're going to go more on and ask also um how Kim Holderness and how we're going to just see more and more and more of this. I want to
Mhm.
take a pause. I've already asked you the button question, so I'm not going to ask you the button question. By the way, if you're listening to this podcast for the very first time, normally what I will do before we go into our break is I will ask my guest if they could push a button and not have ADHD, if they would push that button. And so you're going to have to listen to another episode with Lynn to hear whether she would push that button. But I do, as we're going into this break, want to first of all encourage you to please like and subscribe to this podcast. podcast and share it with your friends, because like I said, this is a thing. If you didn't believe it before, it was just in Atlantic magazine. Mel Robbins was just speaking about it on Sunday morning. We're just finally realizing that this is a thing that all of us who've had it have lived with a lot of these challenges, and no one was talking about it. Like, I've never heard this story from Lynn, by the way, and we've been friends since I was 21. And now I'm 56. So is Lynn. The other thing I want to share with you is that Lynn and I co-founded the Sparkler Society. And that came about because I started this podcast wanting to educate people about ADHD, and I became an ADHD coach. And what I realized is people with ADHD need community. We need to know that we're not the only weird ones out there. A lot of people that I know who are super, super successful in so many areas of their life, I'm one of them, has other areas where we struggle, like paying bills on time, completing forms, remembering to take the laundry out of the dryer. So the theme of the Sparkler Society is, let's get our shit together. And so we are in the process of building this community, building the infrastructure, creating how it's going to work, understanding an ADHD brain. And then we're going to start, we've already started a waiting list, and we're going to be bringing in people on the waiting list to help form what it is that they feel is going to be the most beneficial and supportive. Because again, you're going to see millions of middle-aged women who and beyond, who are all of a sudden saying, this makes so much sense. And even my book title is This Explains So Much, which I'm actually coming out with a second version to include the Sparkler Society. But all that to say, you're going to hear a commercial, I think, about my coaching. We just talked about the Sparkler Society. Other episodes, I had to go back and say, if you've heard about it, we're actually pulling a wait list. But if you are interested and you want to be part of what Lynn and I have going on, you're going to go to jamishapiro.me, JAMISHAPIRO.me, and you'll find a tab for the Sparkler Society, and that will take you to the wait list. And then the other thing you're going to hear is what keeps the lights on for me right now is my business as a senior move manager and home organizing company in San Diego and Coachella Valley called Silver Linings Transitions. So you'll hear that commercial before we come back. And you'll also hear a note about working with me as a coach. So the Sparkler Society isn't open yet. We'll be doing group coaching and other benefits of the membership. But if you want to work with me before that, you can also find out about working with me as a coach wherever you are. And I will say that my special area of interest is actually decluttering and downsizing with an understanding of ADHD, because I'm this story myself. My mom and I battled her clutter my whole adult life. And when I realized that I couldn't expect my mom to go through the process of downsizing and decluttering the same, without understanding that she's also been impacted by ADHD her whole life. And that changes how she makes decisions and why she has piles of stuff. So anyway, I want to stop all that because you're going to hear a bunch of that in the commercial. And then we're going to come back with Lynn and hear the rest of the story. I used to dread visiting my mother. Because of the clutter, the piles, the chaos, we all experience clutter differently. For me, it was a source of anxiety and stress. I'd try to help and she'd get defensive. We were both frustrated, and it was destroying our relationship. Then we discovered something that changed everything. My mother had ADHD, and she'd been living with it undiagnosed for over 76 years. Suddenly, it all made sense. The clutter wasn't laziness. The disorganization wasn't a choice. Her brain was wired differently, and no amount of willpower or traditional organizing advice was ever going to work. That discovery became my life's work. It's why I started the Grandma Has ADHD podcast. It's why I became an ADHD coach and specialist. And it's why I am so passionate about helping women like my mother and maybe like you. Because here's what I know. Clutter affects us emotionally and physically. It damages relationships, it creates shame spirals, and the overwhelm of not knowing where to start keeps you frozen. But it's okay to ask for help. In fact, it's brave. If you're in the San Diego or Coachella Valley area, my team at Silver Linings Transitions can come to your home. We'll help you tackle the clutter with compassion, not judgment. I also work with women virtually through one-on-one ADHD coaching. And if you are overwhelmed with clutter, I can connect you with trusted resources in your area. Visit jamieshapiro.me to get started or grab my book, This Explains So Much, on Amazon. My mother and I got our relationship back. You can get your peace back too. That's JAMISHAPIRO.me. Moving can feel overwhelming, whether you're downsizing, relocating, or helping a loved one transition. There are so many decisions to make, details to handle, and emotions to navigate. At Silver Linings Transitions, we believe every move should be magical, not stressful. We're more than movers. We expertly guide you through the entire process and do our best to alleviate your concerns. From the moment we meet, you'll feel comfortable because we will listen to your needs and wants and work together to create a personalized plan that honors your memories and your cherished belongings while helping you embrace your next chapter. We visit your new space and create a detailed floor plan, ensuring your furniture and treasured belongings will fit safely. We handle the logistics so you don't need to worry about anything, from sorting and packing to coordinating the sale and donation of unwanted items. Our professional team uses efficient, eco-friendly bins and handles every detail with care. We coordinate with our vetted moving partners, oversee the logistics, and ensure nothing is left behind, even packing your refrigerator items. Here's where the magic happens. We don't just unpack. We recreate the feeling of home. Using photos from your previous space, we thoughtfully arrange your furniture, hang your pictures, and set up your kitchen and bathroom so everything feels familiar from day one. When you walk into your new space, it's not just moved in, it's home. Your coffee pot is ready, your favorite photos are perfectly placed, your bed is made, and your new chapter begins with comfort and joy instead of chaos. This is how Silver Linings Transitions makes moves magical. We handle the emotional lifting and the logistics so you can focus on what matters most, settling into your new home. Because every move deserves a silver lining. Hi, I'm Jami Shapiro. I am an ADHD coach and the founder of Silver Linings Transitions, where we do home organizing and move management. And, I did not know that I had ADHD for years. And I remember personally hiring an organizing company to come in and help me because I could just never get it together. And it really wasn't until I understood ADHD and its impact that I realized why. And so I wrote a book, This Explains So Much, Understanding Undiagnosed ADHD, because I just feel like there's so many answers that people don't even know that they're looking for, especially generations of women who grew up thinking that ADHD was just for the hyperactive little boy. It turns out it's not only a body that can be hyperactive, but it can be a mind that's hyperactive. So you can have a wonderful day and you can have something wonderful happen, and then that one negative thing that happens is going to be the thing that takes you into that spiral, and it's going to be keeping you up at night, and you're going to be ruminating on it. And I think that, we as women carry so much shame and so much how it's supposed to be. I'm supposed to have it together. together. And I remember that was the case for me. I remember, how is it that all of these women have so much consistency and their kids get the sticker charts and everything seems to run well, and I'm the one that's missing parent-teacher conferences, and my house, is always in chaos. And then again, that negative self-talk. So my mission is really to educate people who have no idea that ADHD has the impact that it does. And it's to connect you to other people who get it and who will make you feel that you aren't alone, you're not crazy, you're not lazy, you're not stupid, you're not too much. You just have a brain that was wired differently. And I can't wait for you to join me in the community that I'm building, the workshops that I'm creating, the book club that I'm hosting, because I know that I am going to make a profound difference in your life. Okay, so we are back, Lynn. I want to pick up the story. Your parents take you to a psychologist. You think you're around the age of 5. By the way, it's totally normal, both as a young child with or without ADHD, to have those memories kind of like blend together and then lose a lot of our memory. I've read something about why that is. It's normal, and I don't remember why. But then throw in a little ADHD, and I've noticed I will interweave stories, or I can't keep straight, who it was or when it was. So anyway, ish. So your parents take you to a psychologist ish around the age, or they take you to the psychologist around the age of 5-ish.
Yeah, around the age of 5-ish. My dad is still with us, and somewhere in his very organized file cabinet, he has all the notes. I have never read them. Because again, I am a go forward, don't look back type of person. So I did not read them before this episode. I have always wondered if, when my dad does pass and I'm going through his things, whether I would toss them out or whether I would read them. And I figured I will wait till that day comes, because I may not. I did find out that my sister went back and read my therapy notes, which I believe is a HIPAA violation, but whatever. She did that for whatever reason, to understand me, I guess, or not understand me. But they take me to the first one. And let me just tell you again and remind your listeners again that my mom is a very confident woman. She would not ever see this as a failure on her part. And she did not want me to feel like it was a failure on my part. So when she explained to me where I was going, she made it sound like just another activity that was super awesome. So she sold me on it. She did not tell me I had anything wrong with me. She was like, we're going to go and you're going to talk to somebody because you love talking and you're so entertaining that we're going to go and you're going to go entertain a child psychologist. And you know what? Tell your friends. My mom was very big about me telling my friends. There was not going to be any shame. There was not going to be any hiding. She was like, I want you to tell all your friends you're going to a child psychologist. So I was bragging in the neighborhood. Like, wow. I get to go to this place that has fun toys and whatever. And I get to go to this place and I get to talk to somebody who actually cares what I have to say. And I just sold this thing. And all my friends were like, that's so super awesome. Tell us what happens. So, so I went, and I think the first strategy that they tried to use was the dopamine strategy, which is really interesting, right? I'm not diagnosed with ADHD, but they're trying to give me rewards. I guess that was what was in vogue, was a reward strategy. There was no concept of anxiety medicine or sleep medicine for a kindergartner. So they had me make a beautiful, colorful poster of the days of the week. And I got to pick what my goal was. You want to know what my goal was? My first goal that I can recall, what my first goal was. I know what.
I have no idea. None. So I can't wait to hear what you tell me.
Did you have a crush on this person? Andy Gibb.
Oh, I did not
have I had a crush on Andy Gibb. Andy Gibb was coming in concert to Fort Lauderdale, and I had a crush on Andy Gibb. And so I had made a poster that if I slept in my bed for 5 nights, I would get an Andy Gibb poster for my room. Now, my mom's an interior
Oh,
designer and was not
just a
big.
poster? Just a poster?
Well,
Like, you didn't ask for the concert?
Oh, I ultimately got the concert, but it was starting with like little posters, like
Got it.
little wins,
Okay,
which,
right. That's
I
actually
mean,
very
to weave in Sparkler Society, we are talking about a 14-day challenge where we're going to do kind of the same thing, little wins, because little wins matter. Little wins build up to big changes. So I
mhm.
was getting these little wins, but the thing about my little wins that a lot of they didn't know was I'm a very creative problem solver. So they had told me that with my poster that if I slept in my bed, meaning my parents found me asleep in my own bed, I put the star on the poster. Okay, challenge accepted. I would wait till my parents fell asleep. I would sneak in with my comforter and I would sleep at the foot of their bed and I would wake up before they woke up. I would sneak back into my room, pretend to be asleep so I could get my little gold stars. So
Oh.
totally cheating, totally not facing whatever I needed to face. And then it got to a point where like one time I just slept a little too long and my dad tripped over me. So the gig was up, they tripped over me and they found me. So then I turned to my sister to be like, I will, you tell me if you want a poster and I'll put that on my goal board. And if you let me sleep in your room, then you'll get a poster. So we'll all be working the system together. So if you let me sleep with you, if you let me sleep with you and all of that. Now, I would say, and I can say this up front, I don't think she was the nicest sister. I think my energy was something that, I imagine she didn't understand and kind of might have been jealous of all my activities. Who knows? But she didn't allow me to sleep with her in the bed. She did have me sleep on the floor, and then she would put parameters around like what spots I was allowed to sleep on, and then she would, continuously threaten to turn me in. So I learned quickly that like she was kind of not to be trusted. So instead I would go and I would do the same process of go in there, sleep, and then try to wake up before she'd catch me. And then all of our initial agreements of posters, I put a stop to that. So, I mean, we're talking kindergarten, first grade that I'm like problem solving this. So after a while, my parents are like, she's gone through like 3 posters, okay? It's she's just getting more creative about getting stars. Like this is not real accountability. This is just somebody being a strategic problem solver and we're having all the same problems. She's falling asleep during the day, she's keeping us awake at night. She's entertaining us till 11 or 12 o'clock at night so we can't get to sleep, so that again the nights are shorter. So I think they switched doctors. So they went to some other doctor and the new vogue became hypnosis. Like
Mm.
they were going to hypnotize me. Now, looking back on it, that's kind of scary that somebody's going to hypnotize your second, or at that point I was in the second grade, that somebody's going to like do something like that, because it seems like they could insert thoughts that maybe I didn't have. Like that's a very vulnerable place to be at second grade. And I don't really even recall a lot of it, but I know it didn't last long because we moved on to the next one.
Mm.
And we moved on to the next one and the next one. Like I don't remember any doctor that like made it through my parents' trials, and like they wanted to see real results. They were not just going to throw good money after bad. That's my dad saying all the time, don't throw good money after bad.
Mhm.
So it was a series. And then, some people were like, well, now we have to bring the whole family in. So now they were starting to bring my dad and my mom and my sister in to try to rally around me to solve me. And that just wasn't working either. And
Yeah, I want to interrupt that too. One of the things that I've learned again is, I mean, most of us go to therapy. Us, I'm going to say most of us. A lot of us who have trauma in our lives have, or anxiety, have at some point found themselves in therapy. And what I've learned is therapy is great for the trauma, for the effect, the things that you have to get through, but it doesn't really help the ADHD. That's where medication, occupational therapy, and coaching come into play. And so, of course, if they are not taking care of the ADHD, the therapy isn't going to do anything about it. So I just wanted to kind of put that in there.
Yeah, I think the only thing that, some of the tools that stuck with me from the beginning was I obviously love rewards, right? Like everybody said, okay, well that kind of worked, right? That one we're going to kind of stay with. Every child psychologist I went to all the way up to 7th grade stuck with that methodology, and then the second methodology that they stuck with that still sticks with me today is journaling. Like, what
Mm-hmm.
is in her head? Like, if she wakes up in the middle of the night and she has a nightmare, what is the story she's telling herself? And then
Mm-hmm.
let's get that story out of her head and in the journal, and let's get her sort of giving context to that story, which I think you've brought up several times. Like, what is the story you're telling yourself? Like,
Right.
why are
Or it's,
you
yeah,
telling
yeah.
yourself to
During,
worry?
mhm.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
like
also
the word
journaling,
worry.
journaling is, I'm going to say yes, that it is a very effective way to reflect and get it out, because we have, I mean, that's one of the things, we spend so much time avoiding our feelings. And what they say is we need to feel our feelings, like let them pass and observe. And so that was really innovative. And yeah, so okay, so keep going, because this is, I'm, like I said, I've not heard this, and we've been friends for 30 something years.
Yeah, and I mean, it could open up a lot of questions, and and I don't know if we're on a time constraint because I will try to speed up or give you the fun facts,
This
but
is this is what I've decided about the link, because my podcast with Dr. Goodman went past an hour, and he said, "Do you want to cut it? You want to do two parts?" I'm like, "Here's what I think. If somebody wants to hear the podcast and it's too long for them, they can pause. Take a pause and come back to it." I mean, I never complete an entire podcast in one sitting. I'll do it and then I'll go back to it. So I guess there's something to the rhythm of, you want more viewership, or so maybe keep it, people hanging on. Just go. Well, just go. I don't know. I don't
okay.
want to overthink
Well, I
it.
mean, maybe it'll resonate for somebody, or maybe there's somebody else that like kind of went on the same journey that I did, in the 70s, and 80s, because we are talking about, 50 and older, that these were the tools that were available. That's just what
Mhm.
was available. I mean, this is what my parents had to work with. I appreciate that my parents were not anti-therapy.
Mhm.
I don't think that everybody was super like, let's send kids to therapy like they kind
No.
of are now. So, I mean, I really kind of applaud my parents for saying, and my mom especially for finally throwing in the towel that she couldn't fix me. So,
I
um,
I want to interrupt you, speaking of that, your experience of
yeah.
therapy. So my experience of therapy was very different. Back in the days when we were growing up, if you had to go to the principal's office for something, or whatever, you got a referral. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So when my mom was at the doctor, he gave her a referral to a therapist. So I had a negative connotation of therapy. And so I went through therapy as well. I remember starting at least in second grade, but it was negative for me.
Oh, it was funny how much I sold it as being so awesome that some of my friends in Fort Lauderdale were like, "Can I come with you? Like, I wanna see the toys. I wanna see, like, you've got all these cool posters." Like, my parents aren't, like, all that into me having stuff on my walls. So we ended up moving from Fort Lauderdale to Jacksonville, around the 3rd grade, 4th grade, 3rd, 4th grade. So now we're starting with a whole new fresh line of therapists. And this is where we meet the therapist. And this woman was a saint, and she specialized in children, and she had a love for it. When somebody just loves their job? You know how you can just feel like when a nurse just loves what they do and they're just taking care of you in every way you can possibly imagine? This was my final therapist, and I still remember her name, but I'm not gonna say it because I don't know if she's still around.
Well, you could say a name of a therapist because you know what? I also moved to Jacksonville a year after you did and also went to therapy in Jacksonville. And I'm just wondering, mention the name.
Was Jami?
Lynn. Yeah. You just froze. Okay. So we are going to end the podcast right here because we just had a technical issue, which is so funny because Lynn is the technical guru of all of my
Oh,
friends.
no. Oh, no. It froze. Yeah.
Okay, I kept talking. We'll see what happens. But anyway, go. I asked you the name of the therapist because I was in therapy as well in Jacksonville.
All right.
Yeah, not working. We're gonna have to end the podcast and do a part 2. So, all right, you'll just have to tune in for the next week for part 2. So we did something a little bit unusual. This podcast went really, really long, and normally we'll go long, but we go ahead and we run the entire thing. But we felt like there was a lot more that needed to be said in this interview. And we also had technical difficulties. And so we decided to go ahead and break it apart, but we sort of left you hanging. So I just want to let you know that this is going to be the end of part 1, and we're going to pick up with part 2 next week. So we always drop a new episode on Tuesdays. So you will hear this episode, and then next week, tune back in to hear the conclusion of the episode. One of the things that has been challenging with doing the podcast is I understand the content, but technology is not my superpower. And if you've heard me on this podcast before, and I will repeat it frequently, perfect is the enemy of done. And so many people with ADHD struggle with perfectionism because we're so afraid for the world to see what's really going on that we will almost overcorrect and compensate by being perfect. And I'm not perfect. And to me getting this content to you far outweighs the production quality. So I hope that you will understand why it's just here it is in real time, in real life. My life isn't perfect. And again, when I am myself, it gives you permission to be yourself. So join us for the conclusion of this podcast next week. Thanks for listening. The opinions expressed on Grandma Has ADHD podcast are those of our guests and hosts and are intended for informational and entertainment purposes only. This podcast does not provide medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. The content discussed in this episode is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, mental health professional, or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or mental health concern. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or emergency services immediately. The hosts, guests, and producers of Grandma Has ADHD do not assume any liability for the content of this podcast. Listen at your own discretion.